On to other news. Maybe you and I should do some negotiating and get a trade done.
Yeah, I mean, ever since Garrett Crochet was traded to the Red Sox this offseason, it seemed obvious that Luis Robert Jr. would also need to be on the trading block. Although it's certainly not an opportune time for the White Sox to have very little leverage in that Robert's coming off, was it his worst season of his career? I mean, he had a OPS below 700. I don't know how many games he even played. Uh, Unfortunate, but he has remained in the news, and there has been lots of reporting about that recently, including one report that had the Tigers as being a potential trade partner, which certainly piqued my interest. That came up yesterday, specifically because my Tigers are struggling to find someone to play center field this year. Suddenly, after the mysterious injury to Parker Meadows, involving a nerve that is no longer firing in his shoulder, so he cannot throw. That happened on the first day of spring training. Uh, we talked about it at the time. There was, the prognosis was, kind of mixed, but it was like, well, it's gonna come back. There's no question.
Right.
The feeling will come back. It's just a question of when, and when it does, he's going to be just fine. It's not like a lingering injury that is going to cause him trouble down the road. But the question is when, and they speculate it could be 2 days from now, it could be 2 weeks from now, it could be 2 months from now, and apparently it is 2 months because he has landed on the 60-day IL and will not be available officially until the end of May, which just is an absolute worst case scenario for something that seemed so innocuous at first and was kind of downplayed a little bit, but it is a disaster. As I thought, Parker Meadows, I had him as my rookie of the year candidate pre-season in our Nostradamus predictions last year. He got off to a terrible start and got sent down. Then he came back up and looked like the rookie of the year for the last 2 months, kind of carrying the Tigers offense, and is already one of the best center fielders in baseball. So this is just a kick to the nuts that they lost him. But beyond that, the Tigers did have backup plans with Matt Vierling, who could play center field and had some last year, but he was down with a shoulder injury in spring training. So they were to their third option at center fielder, Wenzel Perez, who just came up with a back injury this week, which sent Tigers Nation into a tizzy. Like, what the hell? Like, it's not like they were unprepared. They had three solutions, and it just all of them fell through. Every potential center fielder. The other solution that is still there is Riley Green could return to center field, but the Tigers are reluctant to do that because he always gets injured when he's playing center field. It's just somehow it's just too much for his body. He's been much healthier after they moved him to the corner outfield slots. So they're reluctant to do that. I think they can do that in a worst case scenario. Their problem is if he gets hurt, then Jesus Christ, they've lost all their outfielders essentially, except for Kerry Carpenter and a couple others. But so that's why the speculation that the Tigers might be interested in trading for a center fielder came up, and you may have the best center fielder option on your roster right there in Chicago that could be available. He may be the best, he may be the worst. You don't really know with Luis Robert Jr. So that's going to be the interesting conversation that I think you and I can have if we do a little role playing. If you want to play the role of general manager Chris Getz for your White Sox, and I will play the role of Scott Harris, president and GM of the Tigers, and I think we can figure out a way to make a deal here. Something that helps the Tigers and helps you guys down the road.
Yeah, I mean, you want to just jump right in?
Well, I think I want to give some context at least, or this would be what I would do as Scott Harris, and kind of, or just in general research to kind of see what how Chris Getz would approach a trade. I mean, the obvious example we have in front of us is the Garrett Crochet trade to the Red Sox, which I have to say I think Chris Getz did as well as he possibly could in that trade. I think we talked about it back in December, with good reason, because he had all the leverage in the world. Garrett Crochet came off a tremendous season where he proved to everyone he could pitch an entire season, even though he had a minor innings limit. We had just never seen it before. We knew the stuff was great. just hadn't fully seen him do a full season. So
Right.
in that trade, Getz was able to get Boston's number 4, number 5, number 11, and 14 prospects, 2 of which are top 100 in all of Major League Baseball, according to MLB Pipeline. So that's kind of the benchmark, I guess I would look at. That is, I think we can say Garrett Crochet's value is far exceeds what Luis Roberts is right now, just because of the
What?
season Roberts came off of.
Joking. I'm joking.
Because the season Roberts just came off of. You could try to sell the idea that if he's healthy, which is a big if, and the whole problem in this, he's a potential MVP candidate. So,
Correct.
but we've only seen that in one season where he's been able to put it all together. I think he had a 1-5 WAR season at whatever year that was. But so I think that's the base, like kind of set the parameters. And I've heard that Getz has been asking for 2 top 100 prospects for Luis Robert in real life. Like there's been negotiations at least with your Giants as well as the Cincinnati Reds. But no one's offering 2 100 prospects for Robert at this point. The Giants offer was reportedly their number 2 overall prospect, which isn't even in the top 100 of all Major League Baseball. The other offer that was reported was Cincinnati, who offered I think it was their number 5 prospect, and he's like I think he's number 91 overall in baseball. So that was at least getting into the 100s. So I think that's kind of where we start. Those offers obviously were rejected by Chris Getz. So he wants more than the top number 91 in all of baseball prospects. So that's how I'm looking at it. Just to set at least I'm trying to see Chris Getz or your mind frame. What is your mind frame then, or how the Tigers would approach it, or I don't know. How do you want to approach this?
So it is an interesting situation. It's actually very intriguing situation because you brought it up. If Luis Robert is healthy this year, which is the big if, like you said, he's an MVP candidate. He's had a great, I mean, not that it matters. He's had a great fucking spring. He's got a 933 OPS. He's had 4 fucking home runs.
No, he looks great, but it's spring, and you and I have shit over spring statistics forever. So that's exactly what Scott Harris would do.
Yeah, and you look at his lifetime achievements so far in just under 1,800 at bats. He's got a 790 OPS. He's got 69 stolen bases, including 23 of those were last year. So his legs are healthy, which has been the biggest concern of all. It was just, I don't know, maybe what happened to Luis Robert was he got caught up last year in the mental strain of what was just a pathetic season for the White Sox. Because when I look at 23 bases, I say to my 23 stolen bases, I say, he's a pretty healthy guy. The other thing you have to look at is Robert's best season was also when the core of the rebuild was intact and he had a little bit more protection around him as a hitter than he does right now or will ever have in a White Sox lineup. So what does he look like when he goes to a Tigers lineup with legitimate offense or a Giants lineup with legitimate offense on the upper half or
he's not carrying the team.
Yes, he is not the sole provider of power and run production. Because that's what he is right now. They don't have to throw him anything good. And to be quite honest, I think his results from last season were clearly, it was frustration. It was frustration. I mean, obviously he was injured part of the year, but that's probably was frustrating for him. Like, why can't I fucking stay healthy? And number 2, like, if it's me or anything, so I'm going to swing at anything that's close to the fucking plate with hopes that it's going to turn into something. Because if I don't do it, who the fuck's going to do it? So
He
anyway,
basically admitted that he was pressing because he knew
yeah,
that he had to carry the team, and so that all makes sense. And I don't think anyone's ever going to doubt his ability or what he would produce in a real major league lineup. The question is health, and that's what every GM that Chris Getz is dealing with is gonna bring up. So I think we've established that he can be a great player. We've established that he has serious injury concerns. I think we've established that Chris Getz is not willing to settle for a top 90 prospect, so it'd have to be better than that. So did you peruse the Tigers prospect list? I've got it for you if you want it. But did you,
I perused the top 30
okay, wow, that's more than I did. The
because
article I saw that I originally sent to you that specifically talked about the Tigers was from Bleacher Report, and they
right.
they suggested a trade for Jace Young would get it done. The Tigers' number 7 overall prospect,
Yes,
um, who was recently demoted to AAA.
because you guys don't
Pedigree
have
is
room,
yeah.
right now. Is that the
Pedigree is there. Yeah, his brother Josh is a star with the Texas Rangers. Um, he was the heir apparent for a third base, which is another huge issue the Tigers are dealing with. Um, but he didn't hit. He didn't hit when he was called up last year. He had a bone spur or something in his wrist that they talked about, but that was cleaned up through over the offseason. Came into spring and he had one hit. I believe that was all it was in spring training. So he was demoted to AAA. So I was surprised that Bleacher Report came up with that as the potential trade uh, parameter. So did you have the same thoughts I did when you saw Jace Young, or did you have more positive long term views
well?
of him?
My long term view of him is he is a good fit. One, he's a left handed hitter who
Mm-hmm.
is projected to have power, right? And he would solidify the middle infield with Colson Montgomery. So, or third base, I guess. He plays third and second, right? Uh,
He has not played a very good defensive third base, so he's probably going to be a second baseman eventually. So yeah, I think that part you're right about that.
yeah. So you got your infield starting to like shape up for the White Sox then. But I don't. Let's just say that's the starting point. I mean, obviously, the starting point for Chris Getz is he's going to go. Well, let's start with Max Clark.
Yeah, no.
That is what he's going to do. He's going to say, "Let's
Well,
start with
yeah, but
Max Clark," and and
he's not. The thing is, he can say any of that, and he's not getting those offers from other teams. And if Chris Getz really wants to trade Luis Robert, the Tigers are just competing with other teams' offers, not what Chris Getz wants.
no, I know.
That's
Yeah,
a so it's a
and
little there's another factor that we're not really talking about, and I'm not sure that Bleacher Report article even talked about is you would think that Chris Getz would want to trade him right now just because he has a hot spring, because his value is as low as it's ever been after this past season. So right now he's looking better. But I mean, you and I see through it, and every GM is going to see right through it. Who gives a fuck about spring stats? So I feel like that's kind of a naive approach to it. I think Chris Getz is. I'm kind of undercutting this whole segment, but Chris Getz should probably just wait until the trade deadline.
I,
Hope that
yes,
he stays healthy. But can he do that? I mean, is he going to be able to not panic and try to trade him right now? And that's I guess that's our premise too. It's like, oh, does he try to capitalize on this hot spring? And then,
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I don't. Here's my thought. I think part of if Chris Getz really wants, well, we know he really wants. If he wants these top level guys, then the best thing to do is to gamble. Gamble
yeah,
that he has the first half. You think the first half we all know he can have if he's healthy. And if that happens at the trade deadline, go ahead and fucking line up people because you're going to get what you
yeah,
want. You're going to get what you
yeah,
want, and that's the best scenario. Scenario now, I did like current state. without this first half, trade with the Tigers. I would
Yeah.
say this is just my thought on the whole thing. I like Jace Young. I
Okay.
think that is probably the good starting point. You're not going to give up a top 5 guy for Lewis Robert right now, and
Well,
maybe
the Tigers also have the top. I mean, MLB Pipeline calls them that they've got the best system in baseball right now. So they have 6 top 100 prospects to work with. So just like I was saying, the Giants' top 5 prospects are not nearly as good as the Tigers' top 5
right,
prospects.
exactly.
So that's why I'm kind of just setting it up on the top 100 of all baseball list to kind of get an idea what Getz is looking for.
But I think there's a way, because this money's already on the books for the White Sox. I think there's a way to make this trade. You guys give us some decent guys, say a Jace Young, say maybe like a Roberto Campos or a Justin Bigby, maybe, and then a couple outside of the top 30, probably relievers, is my guess, is where the White Sox would go with that. We send you Lewis Robert and half of what he's owed because the money's already
Yeah.
on the books. So then that doesn't cripple you guys. Not that it should cripple any of this money, should cripple any owner, but anyway,
Yeah.
for those
But
of
that's
us
an
who
incentive.
for owners who who ownership that is using caps and things to
Yeah.
manipulate the fans. We send back the sweetener of Robert and like say 25 million.
Yeah, we've seen this before in many trades recently. You're buying more prospects or better prospects with the
Right.
deal by throwing in cash. So
That's
that's
thing that's
appealing.
that's what I think you have to do right now if you're Chris Getz. But if I'm Chris Getz, I say honestly, if I was Chris Getz, like you just said, I would say fuck it. I'm rolling the dice because at the same time, if you're, I don't understand. Like the thing is, like I feel like it's not a lose situation at all because if you're stuck with Lewis Robert, oh well. I mean, like if he keeps
Yeah.
getting injured, then it is another oh well and see you later. But like, I don't know. I would roll
So
the
he
dice.
I think that's going to be our conclusion, although it kind of ruins our whole segment here. But I think that's the logical conclusion that he's going to have to roll the dice. But he's owed $15 million this year, and the way I read it, he's got a club option for 20 million next year and another club option for 20 million the year after that. So
Yeah.
I did not see what the buyouts were for those 2 years, which would add to the 15 guaranteed that he's still owed. So um, I'm a little confused by that, but I I guess we've talked about how potentially desperate Chris Getz would be. I think we also need to talk about how potentially desperate Scott Harris is right now with the amount of injuries that we've seen for the Tigers that are just the wrong people are getting hurt. They could have had other people get hurt and it would not have fucked them up as much as this is. So is Scott Harris desperate to make a deal? Is he
Right.
willing to go even bigger than Jace Young? I I looked at it and thought, well, if he's desperate and they're two desperate guys that have to make a trade, I think we've seen Getz is not gonna settle for even a top 90 prospect. The Tigers have to go in the 80s, which they do have that, and they have the depth to do it. The trouble is, number 5 and number 6 on the Tigers list are both catcher first baseman, which you guys seem to have plenty of, which might not be the case so much anymore as it was a couple of years ago, but not as appealing, but potentially better prospects. And Tyron Liranzo, I don't even know how to pronounce it. He's the guy that he actually the number 5 catching slash first base prospect that the Tigers got in the Jack Flaherty trade last trade deadline with the Dodgers. And then they got Jack Flaherty back. So it'd almost
Right.
be like we're we're just giving you a prospect we shouldn't even have that's just kind of gifted, but he'd be a top 80 in all of baseball prospect and our number 5. Um, I don't think he would do that and Jace Young. So if you were more interested in Jace Young, then he'd come off the table, and then we'd have to add more deeper prospects, which is probably pretty close to your original proposal. I don't think it'd be more than 3 total prospects. But who knows? And if cash is involved, it kind of throws everything out. If you're gonna they might negotiate. Well, you get 5 prospects if you give us 25 million back on the Roberts contract. So that's where it gets a little
Yeah, and
nebulous.
I
But
wasn't even thinking about the fact that if we were sending 25 million, that would mean like you guys are picking up his club option for next year.
and that might
It's a
have to
two.
be
It's a,
negotiated with him.
right. I
I don't
mean,
know.
it's a $2 million buyout. So
Oh, is it? Okay.
even yeah, even if the Tigers were just like, we want to fill the gap, and then if he's legit, we can exercise that club option, or because I believe all that when you trade the player, the contract terms go with them, so the Tigers would have that option to do whatever they wanted. So
Yeah, yeah. But
so maybe
I
the
think when
Sox,
trades happen,
yeah,
the agents might get involved and say, "Well, we'll agree to the trade, or however it works with, if you have an extension or if you buy out
yeah,
these years." Or so that I think that's the point you were getting to. So
yes, yeah, yeah, but
I think there's the parameters for a trade, but I mean, based on your and my conversation, our role playing here, I think there's a match there someplace. But logically, I think, like you said, I think I think Getz has to roll the dice and try to negotiate from a position of strength with some leverage. If Robert can continue this spring performance into the regular season, it might be an early June trade. It might
right,
not be a deadline trade. He might have to pull the trigger a little bit sooner, but doing it right now would be, I think, not the right thing for the White Sox. I'm also I'm worried. The Tigers might also see this as a temporary issue. That's another reason why this conversation might be moot. Scott Harris might say, "Hey, all these guys are going to be healthy again. All the center fielders I talked about going down, they're not out forever. So, do we have to make a long term decision? Just hope to kind of skate through these first couple months, and hope there's no reason to think Parker Meadows can't come back 100% due to this issue. But Jesus Christ, it's already been like a month and a half, and he's adding 2 more months to this. It's been a month, I guess. And they're adding 2 more months to it, so that makes me nervous. I don't know. That's why you and I aren't major league GMs, but it's fun to play the role from time to time.
sure is.
Word Hole Media.